All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Understanding Your Pension. My name is Candace Jazvac, and I'm a member of the mobilization team at the PIPS National Office in Ottawa. I'm joined today by John Starrick from our compensation team. John is our subject matter expert on our members' pensions. Thanks for joining us today, John.
Hello, everyone.
Just before we get started, I'll go over a bit of key information about our platform, Zoom. So, due to the size of the group, we have muted all lines to ensure the best sound quality for everyone participating today and for those who will watch later. You can use the chat box to send a message to us should you have any questions or technical issues during the webinar. My colleague, Catherine Gagnon, is monitoring the Ask a Question account and will be able to help you out. And this session is being recorded and it will be circulated to everyone soon. So you will be able to take a look at this again if you, need to review it. All right. So let's start with a quick poll just to see where everyone's at. The question is, how would you rate your knowledge of pensions? So you should see the question pop up on your screen now. I'll give you a little bit of time to complete that. All right, I'll give you about 10, 15 more seconds, so make sure you get your votes in if you haven't already. All right. So let's take a look at those results. So we can see that 25% of folks on the call feel they have no knowledge whatsoever or very little knowledge about pensions. 67% feel they have some knowledge, and about 8% feel they have a lot of knowledge. So thanks so much for participating in that. That really gives us a great starting point for today's webinar. I'll take this opportunity to note that this presentation is designed to give you a high-level overview of how your pension works. Pensions are highly technical and governed by legislation, which, as we know, can change from time to time. This presentation is designed to give you a general understanding of how pensions work and how your pension supports your future retirement security. So keep in mind that you should always review information on the Treasury Board's website for specific details and before making any major decisions related to your pension. All right, so let's get started. Today, we will focus on the basics of how different pension types work with a closer look at your specific pension type. We'll talk about the idea of retirement income security and the role your pension plays in that. And then we'll take a look at what PIPS has planned to protect your pension. So, John, can you get us started by simply explaining what a pension is? I think many of us have a general understanding of what a pension is, but also find the details a bit complicated and confusing.
For sure. First, welcome everybody to this second session. A pension is an income that one receives when they retire. That part is quite simple, but where their pension is coming from is not understood as well. So over the course of your working life, both you and the employer roughly make equal contributions to the pension plan. Those contributions are then invested, in the case of the Public Service Pension Plan, by the Public Service Pension Investment Board. And then upon retirement, your pension is paid out of that fund. So your pension is essentially forced savings on your part and a deferred salary on the part of the employer.
I think that's a really important point. So both employees and the employer pay into pensions over time. The money is invested. And then upon retirement, the pension comes from those investments. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct. Your pension is a combination of your savings and the deferred compensation from the employer, and you get a pension. You don't get a big pile of money at retirement.
Right. Okay. And there are different types of pensions. Is that right?
Yes, there's two basic types. There's defined benefit and defined contribution. Most of our members are in defined benefit plans, and the Treasury Board plan, this public service superannuation plan, is a defined benefit plan. And basically, a defined benefit plan provides a guaranteed annual income at retirement. Now, some of our members are in a target benefit plan. So that target benefit plan is similar to a defined benefit plan in that it provides an annual income at retirement, but it isn't guaranteed. So those are one of the differences, and we'll get into that later. And a few of our members are inside defined contribution plans.
Okay. And what governs a pension? Who sets the rules for a pension plan?
Okay, so well, basically, pensions are ruled by legislation, which is usually a provincial responsibility, but there are some plans that fall under the federal responsibility. And in this case, for the public service superannuation plan, it's its own act and legislation. So that's the most important piece. The second piece is a plan document, and a plan document goes over the specifics of your plan.
Okay, great. So all of the members that were invited to today's webinar are from groups that are covered by the Public Service Pension Plan, which is a defined benefit pension plan. Can you walk us through what a defined benefit plan is in a little bit more detail?
Sure. Let's start with the contributions. So over the course of your working career, both you and the employer roughly make about the same amount of contributions to the pension plan. And then those funds are invested, and upon retirement, it's your pension is paid from the plan. So the pension is essentially forced savings on your part and a deferred salary from the employer. And as I mentioned before, with a defined benefit pension plan, your income is basically guaranteed. When you retire, you receive an annual income, and when you pass away, if your survivor, your spouse, survives you, then he or she would continue receiving 50% of your pension until they pass away. Also, the other great thing about your plan is that being a defined benefit plan, the employer takes all the risk. So any market fluctuations, the employer's at risk for that, not you, the member.
Right. So I think that's an important point. So under a defined benefit pension plan, the employer is essentially responsible for guaranteeing that that retirement income, that the plan has enough money to pay you through your retirement. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what makes defined benefit plans the gold standard and why we protect them.
Great. So over the last couple of years, we've heard a lot about target benefit plans. Could you explain the difference between defined benefit pensions like the Public Service Pension Plan and target benefit pensions?
Yeah, sure. So as we discussed, a defined benefit plan provides a guaranteed annual income at retirement. The target benefit plan also will give you an annual income at retirement, but it isn't guaranteed. So if the pension investments don't do well, then the membership needs to make a decision. And that decision could be to increase the contributions for the members, not the employer. It will only increase the contributions for the members, or to reduce the benefits for the retirees. There's other things that can happen, but basically, this is why we're against it. We don't think that the membership should be fighting amongst each other. Bill C-27 was an attempt a couple of years ago, you probably heard about it, where the government was trying to allow federally regulated companies and crown corporations to transition from the secure defined benefit pension plans to these risky target benefit plans. PIPS, along with the Canadian Labour Congress, fought against this, and we basically won. But we're still on a lookout because you never know if future governments will bring this back to the table.
Right. And how can we protect our defined benefit pensions from employers that do want to move to a target benefit pension?
Well, the first thing to do is to understand, the difference between a defined benefit plan and a target benefit plan, and to know that the defined benefit plan is what you want to be in. It's just too risky to be inside a target benefit plan. And so we PIPS and our members need to be ready to push back should the employer or Treasury Board want to introduce target benefit plans. So we need to be vigilant.
And where can our members find more information about their pensions? For example, how much could a member expect to receive when they retire?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. And unfortunately, we don't have the members' information. I mean, we have some information on members, but we don't have their salary information, their years of service, etc. So they really should be going to their HR department and, more importantly, to the pension center. The pension center would be able to give them pension estimates and go over any questions that they have with respect to their pension.
And what happens if a member changes or leaves their job before retirement? What happens to their pension?
In that case, the member would get options. One option could be having a transfer value or the present value of your pension transferred out of the pension plan. You're no longer a member. And that would be transferred into a locked-in RRSP. Some of the money might also be taken out in cash, but that amount would be taxed. Another option would be to take a deferred pension, which would mean that you would leave, but at age 60 or 65, you would start your pension. To get more information on this, you should contact the pension center, because they would be able to tell you what that transfer value is, what your deferred pension would be, and then you can make an informed decision. And if you have any questions with that, you could always contact us at PIPS to go over that.
Okay, great. Well, that's a lot of really fantastic information. But we know that our workplace pension loan isn't the only part of isn't the only part of a secure retirement. Is that right?
That's right. The workplace pension is only one part of the retirement income.
Can you go into a little more detail on the other parts?
Yeah, basically there's three legs that we look at in the pension industry. The first one is your government pension plans. So that's like Canada Pension Plan or Quebec Pension Plan, QPP, CPP. Then there's also old age security, OAS. And if you qualify as a low income retiree, then you would also have the guaranteed income supplement, or GIS. So that's leg one. Leg two are your own personal savings, which would include RRSPs, TFSAs, other investments and savings that you have. And a third leg would be the workplace pension. So the three of these put together create a secure retirement income for you.
Okay. So I know a lot of my friends and family don't have a workplace pension at all. Is that common?
Unfortunately, yes. Only about 35% of working Canadians have a workplace pension, and less than half of those have a defined benefit pension plan like our members do.
Okay, so is it possible to just get by on CPP or QPP, OAS and GIS, and I guess, and personal savings?
Well, some people might, but it's much more difficult, obviously. The government retirement plans alone, could still have seniors living in poverty. And young people today, they have precarious jobs and that's only going to lead to a precarious retirement. And so, having a workplace pension definitely adds to security. According to StatsCan, in 2018, only 22% of people who filed their taxes contributed to an RSP that year, and the average household only saved about $852. So that isn't a lot. That's not going to give you a sustainable retirement. And this is why PIPS is focused on protecting our members' pensions, and why we fight for pensions for all.
All right. So thank you, John, for all of that information. Before we move on, let's do another quick poll to see how everyone is feeling. I know we've fired a lot of information at you really quickly, but let's just take a look and find out how folks feel their knowledge of pensions is now, after you've heard all that great information. And the poll should be up on your screen. I'll give you a little bit of time to complete that. All right, I'll give you about another 10, 15 seconds, so get your votes in if you haven't yet. All right, let's take a look at those results. So we've had some movement. Now we have 6% of folks still feel they have no knowledge whatsoever or very little knowledge. But 76% of folks now feel that they have some knowledge of pensions, and 18% feel that they have a lot of knowledge on pensions. So that's really fantastic. It looks like folks are generally feeling like their knowledge has improved, but I can see from the chat box, which is going very rapidly, that folks had a lot of questions. So, you know, if you haven't asked a question already, go right ahead and type it into the chat box, and I'm going to ask them to John here. So let me take a look. So my first question is, what is the best way to contact the Pension Center? Is it by phone or is email best?
So the Pension Center prefers to be contacted by phone. I think we provide the number at the end of this session here, but you could also find it at the Treasury Board website or on our website. And when you call, wait times, generally speaking, are less than 3 minutes. And have your PRI ready, your personal record identifier, so that they can look you up and get into your account, and then they can start going over any questions that you have.
Yeah, and I mean, I can speak from personal experience. I know that they're really fantastic. It's such an excellent resource that you should definitely take advantage of. I have another question here from someone that's looking to, they want to know if they reduced their work week in the last sort of 1 to 2 years of service and their salary is reduced, whether that would impact their pension.
So when they reduce their work week, their employment status would change obviously to part-time, and that would affect the amount of service that they're accruing at the end, but it wouldn't have a huge effect on the actual calculation. But for questions like that, because they're very specific, one should contact the Pension Center and then ask for the 2 different scenarios so they can compare what the difference would be.
Okay, that's good. Good to know. So there's some folks here that, you know, after we've talked about how so few folks have defined benefit pensions or any workplace pension at all, they're wondering, you know, what the big deal is, why we're so concerned about protecting our members' pensions. Can you give some thoughts on that?
Well, yes. I mean, pensions are a very important benefit for all of our members. We know this, and we can even tell just from the amount of people that have logged on to these 2 sessions. But pensions aren't negotiated, so technically, Treasury Board or the government can get rid of the pension at any time. Now, I don't want to cause fear. That probably won't happen because they know everybody would be up in arms. But the point is that pensions are a really good benefit, and that we need to stay on top of it and make sure that the government and Treasury Board are going to continue to honor the promise and provide all the required contributions, et cetera, into the plan.
There's one question here from someone, and from Jennifer, wanting to know that if the union can help get a pension calculator implemented so members can run scenarios on their specific situation. If I'm not mistaken, there is a pension calculator available. Is that right?
There is a pension calculator available, but the union, us, we can't get to it. The members can. There's CWA compensation working arrangement. They can get in and run scenarios, but those scenarios may not be accurate because the information is downloaded from Phoenix, and that, as you know, still has some issues. It may be better to, like, when you're seriously thinking about retiring and really want to know what your pension is to contact the pension center and ask for a pension estimate.
Right. And I know that folks haven't received pension statements for some time. Do we have any sense of when they'll return?
Yeah, so the annual pension statements haven't been sent since Phoenix came about 4 years ago now. And
Right.
so members aren't receiving this very important information. The pension center refuses to send it out because they cannot confirm that the information is correct. And they think it would cause more worry among members than provide a statement of account, which is why we always tell members when they're coming close to retirement that they should or really need to contact the pension center to get a pension estimate and find out if they have any buybacks left or anything like that, because you want to do this before you retire.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So just to underscore, we are not able to provide details on people's personal pensions.
No,
how much they need to contribute. So the pension center is really the place to go for that information as much as possible.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. I have another great question here. How does working past the age of 65 impact pensions? Like an individual's pension?
Yeah, so working past age 65 really doesn't have any impact because you're allowed to work past age 65. You could work as long as you like, but for CRA purposes, you cannot work past the year you turn 71. So, and the other part is that you cannot have more than 35 years of pensionable service. So if you started very early and you have 35 years pensionable service when you're 65, you're not going to get any more service. Okay.
I see. Okay.
But the years you worked after age 65, if you're making like a higher salary, that higher salary will be used in calculating your pension. But some people feel that well, if they're not going to get service, that they may as well retire, and that's a personal choice.
Right, that's fair. So, for folks that are sort of rounding up to retirement, how close to your actual retirement should you be contacting the pension center?
Well, as a pension geek, I would say people should contact the pension center every year now that they don't have their annual statement, their annual pension statement, to get a pension estimate. But I know most people won't do that. Definitely, you need to give at least 3 months notice before you're going to retire so that the pension center can verify as much as possible all your salary information from Phoenix. If you're going to wait less than that, they can start your pension, but it may be incorrect. Now, that doesn't mean that it'll always be incorrect. They will make the changes once they get the proper information, but it would probably cause you some stress. So definitely 6 months before you're retiring, you may want to start looking into it and contacting the pension center, and then you would give 3 months formal notice.
Okay, that's great. So just, we've talked a little bit about Phoenix and sort of the impact on pensions. Can you just sort of round out what the impact of Phoenix is on retirement these days?
Well, Phoenix does have implications, but it doesn't really have any implications when it comes to pensions because, as I just mentioned, even if they use the wrong salary, for example, they didn't get the last round of increases from the collective agreement, you would hopefully notice this. You would go back to the pension center and say, you're using my wrong salary. And they would go back to Phoenix and they would try to work this out. You might even need to get the ERO involved to launch a grievance or something. But the point is that once your real salary is with the pension center, they will recalculate your pension and give you any monies that they owe you.
Right. So they'll catch you up in the long run, right? Yeah. So
that's correct. That's right.
Okay. We have a question from Mike. He's looking to if you can explain what a buyback is, or give a general sense.
Okay. So buybacks often happen. They can happen for many reasons, but for example, during a maternity or a parental leave, okay, and when a person's been gone, say, for a year, and then they return to work, the employer is supposed to approach them and say, by the way, you've been gone for a year. Do you want to pay back the deficiency? Now, you notice I didn't say buyback. I said to pay back the deficiency, because at the beginning, you're given the option to pay back what you would have contributed during that year. There's no interest, no penalty, no nothing. And you have twice the amount of time to pay it back as you were on leave. So if you're away for 1 year, you would have 2 years to pay back that amount, for example, $5,000. Okay. But let's say you decide that you can't afford to pay back that deficiency, so you don't. And a couple of years later, you know, you're doing well, you're getting a promotion and everything. And then you say, geez, if I had that extra year, I would be able to retire earlier. Well, now you're making an application to buy back that 1 year of service. And that's going to be charged on or calculated on your current salary, not your salary at that time. So it's going to be higher, and you are charged interest, etc. So it's much more expensive afterwards. So if you're coming back from any type of leave, it's very important to be sure that you pay back that deficiency so that you do not have to buy it back later.
All right. Well, that makes sense. I have a question from Elizabeth. She's asked, if we retire before age 60 but don't take any pension payments until age 60, is there a penalty?
No. So if a person, say, worked 20 years, we'll just say from 25 to 45 or 35 to 55, and what you're doing is you're taking a deferred pension, and then when you turn age 60, you would start your pension, and there would be no penalty, unless you're in Group 2 that you started after January the 1st, 2013. Then age 60 would be early retirement. You'd have to work till age 65.
Okay, and can you just give a little more detail on that change that happened in 2012, the Group 1 versus Group 2?
Yeah, so the government back then created 2 groups. So anyone who was already hired and in the pension plan up to December 31st, 2012 is a Group 1 member. And anyone who was hired on or after January the 1st, 2013 is a Group 2 member. Now, Group 2, it's exactly the same, except that Group 2 members have to work till age 65 rather than 60, and early retirement is at age 60 rather than age 55. On a positive side, Group 2 members contribute less to the plan because they are working 5 years longer.
Okay. We have another question. Can you explain how survivors' pensions work?
So when a person retires and is married and they pass away, their survivor, which could be same sex as well, would receive 50% of their pension for the rest of that person's life, and that could be for another 20 years or 30 years. Okay. And that person's pension, the survivor, would also be indexed every year. Okay. Now, if you're single and when you pass away, then your estate or beneficiary would get the remainder of the guaranteed of the 5 years. So if you passed away after 5 years, there's nothing left. But if you passed away, for example, after year 2, year 3, 4, 5 of your pension would go to your estate, and distributed accordingly.
And you mentioned indexing while you were talking there. Can you just explain what that is? for folks
So
who aren't familiar?
indexing is the cost of living adjustment or index, and basically your purchasing power. So every year, pensioners would fall behind in their purchasing power if there was no indexing to keep up with the rate of inflation. The indexing, so for example, last year, I think it was about 2.2%. So everyone who had retired, who was retired for the whole year, would get an increase of 2.2%. But if you retired, for example, in the middle of the year, then you would get prorated, so you would get like 1.1% indexing. But then the following year, because you've been retired the whole year, you would get the full indexing. And this keeps you so that you don't lose purchasing power on your retirement income.
Right. Because, you know, if you're retired for 20 years, the amount you were getting when you retired versus 20 years later, in real dollars, it's, you know, there's a difference. Yeah. Exactly. Okay. I have a question from George, who's looking, he wants to know who administers the pension.
Okay, so the pension plan is administered by Treasury Board and the Pension Center. They both have various jobs that they do, but the Pension Center basically takes care of all the buybacks, all the calculations, the annual statements, the retirees. They actually pay the members, you know, direct deposit, etc. They do not like sending checks, except for the first payment. They would send a check, but after that, they'd like to have direct deposit, and they administer the pension plan.
Okay. Can you explain what the oh gosh, the term is escaping, the bridge benefit is? A lot of folks refer to it as a clawback as well, but I think it's not really a clawback.
No, the bridge benefit is definitely not a clawback. It's a little bit difficult to explain in that, but it is a good benefit. Essentially, most people believe their pension is 2% times their years of service times their average best 5-year salary. But in actual fact, that is not the formula. The formula is 1.375% up to the average YMPE, and then 2% above that. And the YMPE is a magical number that CRA comes up with every year. And you will be paying like EI deductions and CPP or QPP deductions up to that amount. Okay, this year it was $56,300. And even your pension, you'll notice that up into the YMPE, you pay a certain point, and then you pay a higher point above that because the part below that, they're giving you a break because you're contributing to CPP or QPP. So what the bridge does is that it takes that 2% minus that 1.375%, which is 0.625%, and so that you're not penalized, and gives you that pension. So in a way, it is still the 2%, but a member can decide to start receiving CPP or QPP when they're age 60, and in a way would be like double dipping because the bridge benefit would be that CPP or QPP, but you're allowed to do that. The other side of the story, though, is that if you start your CPP or QPP early, then you'll have a smaller pension for the rest of your life with respect to them because you started 5 years early. The bridge benefit is there to sort of negate that that penalty that you would get by starting your CPP early.
Okay. So to sort of shift gears a little bit, we have a question from Carmen and from a bunch of folks actually looking to find out, as best we can describe, what the member's pension fund is actually invested in.
Okay, so the pension fund is administered by the Public Service Pension Investment Board. They were created in 1999 and basically started to have funds and then started investing in 2004. They are signatories to several environmental, social, and governance causes, so they're pretty good in that. and they are invested because we're talking well over $100 billion. So they have their hands in almost everything, quite a bit in Canada, but also globally. They have opened offices, I think, in Hong Kong, New York, London, so that they would be able to better react to deals in those areas.
Okay. So these questions are so good, but they're all over the place. So I apologize if they feel like if I'm making your head spin a little bit. So the next question is from Lori. And she says that she's heard people talk about the point in the calendar or fiscal year making a difference in maximizing your pension benefits. So I'm assuming like when you retire. Is there, is that true? If it is, can you explain what that means?
No, it's not true. When you retire in a year has really no implication on what your pension is, because it's all calculated to that month, even to the day. So it doesn't really matter where in a year you retire, because you're not even penalized when it comes to the indexing. You will get prorated for that year. So there's nothing wrong. You can choose any time of the year to retire. There is a difference, though, when it comes to the time of the month that you retire. You want to retire in the second half of the month, because once you've worked 10 days in that month, you also get your vacation credit. You also get your benefits for that month. And and that's a little bit of a bonus, because if you do take the public service healthcare plan and dental care plan for retirees, that only starts the month after you retire. So you would have potentially a 1 month gap. But if you retired at the end of the month, then you wouldn't have that gap. So, but you don't want to retire on the last day of the month, because if that happens to be a weekend or a holiday, that pushes you to the first of the month. So, you know, if you retire in the 20s, you're like in the later part of the month, you're fine.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That's something I definitely did not know. All right. So, thank you, John, so much for answering all of those questions. And I can see that there are tons more. But I hope that we've been able to cover sort of a good variety of what folks are wondering about. Thanks so much, John. Do you have any last comments you want to share?
Oh, no, thank you very much. And I hope the members remember, if you have questions about your personal pension, to contact the Pension Center. If you run into issues, then we're here to assist you.
That's great. And thanks to everyone for sharing your fantastic questions. You know, pensions are something that I find quite interesting. I've done a lot of sessions like these over the years, and I always learn something a little bit new. And, you know, John, maybe I'm a bit of a pension geek like you now after we've done these sessions. All right. So I just want to note for folks that we will be sharing contact information at the end of this presentation. So please follow up if you still have questions we weren't able to answer today. As John mentioned, it's important to note that PIPS doesn't have access to your personal pension information. So for anything that's related to your specific case, what you can expect to receive in retirement, all of that fun stuff, you should be getting in touch with the Pension Center. But beyond that, there is a lot of great information available to you. For your government retirement programs, we recommend visiting the Government of Canada website, their public pensions page. You'll find a lot of great information there about CPP and QPP, OAS and GIS, as well as a calculator that will help you understand your personal pension benefit. For personal savings options, there are a lot of resources available to you. Your financial institution or an independent financial advisor can help you. As a member of PIPS, you also have access to Service Plus, our members benefit program where you can take advantage of preferential rates, discounts, and savings on a variety of products and services available exclusively to members, including a discount to the Retirement Planning Institute. And for your workplace pension, as we were mentioning, there are great resources on our website, including links to the Pension Center, as well as compensation web applications, or CWA, where you can find that detailed calculation to figure out an estimate of what your pension will be. All right, so before I let you go, I want to give you a sneak peek at what's next for PIPS. Today, we really only scratched the surface when it comes to pensions and retirement income security. Pensions are incredibly technical, and as you can tell, we could easily talk about them for hours. Today's session is about giving you a broad understanding of your pension and how it works so that you can begin planning for your own retirement. And that planning should include working to protect your workplace pension. This fall, we will be launching our Protecting Pensions campaign. This campaign will take members to the next step, from understanding their pensions and retirement security to action. We will be hosting more webinars, launching some great tools, and working with members to lead initiatives in their workplace. And there will be stuff there for folks who are still working from home. So keep an eye out for an email soon about our first actions. So lastly, let's review everything we covered today. We discussed the basics of how different pension types work with a closer look at your specific pension type, the idea of retirement income security, and the role your pension plays in that. And then we talked about our upcoming campaign and what you can expect to see from PIPS this fall. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Big thanks to John for his expertise and to Catherine for keeping the questions flowing. If you do have any outstanding questions about this presentation or our upcoming campaign to protect pensions, please email us at bettertogether@pips.ca. If you do have more technical questions for our pensions team, we will make sure that they get where they need to go. Thanks again, folks. Really appreciate your time and have a great afternoon.